fun.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I will.
Good. Talk loud. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Music Talk here from McNally Robinson, here on Treaty 6 territory, homeland of the Métis. I'm Mark Turner. Our guest tonight is our guest conductor, Judith Yan. Judith, welcome back to Saskatoon.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here.
And welcome to the best bookstore on the prairies.
Yes, I agree.
It is, we haven't done Music Talk here in a few months, and it's so nice to be back at our discussional home. That's not. But also, it was really great to just browse books again,
Right.
because that's something we all need to do more of, frankly. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yes.
For those of you watching tonight, we of course have this live stream this weekend of Swan Lake. You can join us online. You can join us in the hall. Judith, you're back. You were here last March.
Yes.
With us. We keep bringing you in the winter. My sincere apologies.
Well, it's a good thing I love the winter.
That is
Yes.
good. That is good. Let's remind people you were here last year for Transatlantic Cruise.
Yes.
Since then, you've again been tromping all over the world and globe and things, and have been conducting and you were just recently in the very sunny Louisville, Kentucky.
Yes.
Much warmer than here.
Well, I thought it would be, because it's considered the South, I thought for sure it would be 20 degrees Celsius, but oh no, -10. Right.
And you had a snow day, from what I understand.
Oh, yes. We had approximately half an inch of ice, and it was shut down.
Well, yeah.
The whole state.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have yet to have a snow day this year in Saskatchewan. So that's good. It's fun to have you here for this program, particularly because you and I actually started discussing this program many years ago.
Correct.
I can't even remember how many years ago it was. It was in the land of no masks.
That's right.
And the before times. And I don't really remember. I'm saying these things, and I don't really remember what the before times were.
Right.
But the concept started so many years ago to do a concert of Swan Lake, and it's so good to finally have it happening, full orchestra.
Yes.
It's the biggest orchestra we've put on stage now in well over 2 years.
Oh, wow.
And so it's really exciting to be able to do that with as many musicians as we have on stage and do it safely.
Right.
What is special about this one is that you actually created your own Swan Lake suite.
Yes. Created just for you guys.
Yeah.
Just for your audience.
Yeah.
I generally, usually in Swan Lake, when they do Swan Lake suites and in symphony concerts, there's 6 numbers, non-chronological order, or maybe it is, but it doesn't quite tell the story. And it's such a wonderful, wonderful story that I thought, if one were to present Swan Lake as a symphony concert, there's so much more amazing stuff out there. Like that, I know that as if someone who goes to the ballet would listen to those pieces that are not in the suite and go, my goodness. Yeah, and I hope they got to the cash desk. Sorry,
Yeah, there was an announcement. For those of you at home, you probably didn't hear it, but we did have that.
Yeah. So instead of 6, we picked 11, and it's chronological order. It's about 40 minutes long. All the most exciting music, and yeah.
So I find Swan Lake historically appealing from the perspective of music lovers, because this is a Tchaikovsky. I mean, he was in his 30s. It wasn't like he was super young, but he wasn't really fully established. He'd written. I think he completed 2 symphonies, Symphony 1 and Winter Dreams, and then The Little Russian, and but he wasn't really like solidified as the great composer we know him today. And Swan Lake actually was a flop.
Yes.
Which I find fascinating. People thought it was too noisy. It was too there was one reviewer talked about it being too Wagnerian.
Oh.
It was too many musicians in the pit. You do a lot of ballet.
Yes.
And Swan Lake really did change ballet forever, didn't it? Like it pre Swan Lake, it was a lot of pretty dancing on stage.
Right. Yes, this is pretty in a different kind of way. I think the story, well, it's like an opera. The text comes first, and I think perhaps the story came first. And it's such a remarkable story. I didn't know until like doing research for this concert that Swan Lake, the lake itself, is created by the tears of Odette's mother. So when Princess Odette was cursed by the evil sorcerer, and cursed her to be a swan during the day and can only take human form at night, the entire kingdom was so devastated that, and you can hear it in the music. It is so cinematic, and that I don't think I've ever seen this portrayed in a ballet production. But really, the lake is magical because of the tears that's shed by the mother.
Exactly, and the fact that that von Rothbart has doomed her to this reality of swan in the day and human at night is
Right.
is. I also like that he kind of cobbled together German and Russian folklore. It's like
That's
the
right.
story exists in both
Right.
in both lores, and yet he was like, I'm going to take the best bits from each.
Absolutely.
I like what you said there about the music being cinematic. It really is. It's I think of some of the probably the biggest ballet prior to Swan Lake would have been Giselle, Adolphe Adam's Giselle.
Yes.
His great masterwork. He didn't really write a whole lot else. No. He wrote Oh Holy Night, so he gave us that, and that's pretty much it.
I didn't even know that.
But I'm the only person who knows that. Me and the Adolphe Adam family estate. But it really does musically change ballet forever, because it becomes such a living, breathing
Yes.
force. The music itself actually becomes so important. I've seen
Yes.
Giselle. We even played Giselle a few years ago here in Saskatoon. I couldn't sing you a tune if you held a gun to my head. Whereas Swan Lake, quite
Yes.
literally, every moment in it is
Yes.
like, oh, I know this.
Yes. I
So good.
yeah. I would like to say that he revolutionized, but I think Tchaikovsky, and after him Prokofiev, are singularly so unique as ballet composers. I don't think there is anyone that came close. And the way he wrote it, it's loud, but his themes of that ballet, they're loud themes. Like there are themes of love and betrayal and redemption, mistaken identity, and then in the central characters with the prince and princesses, the princess, the two of them were willing to sacrifice themselves. And here, I find fascinating, and maybe a little autobiographical. Who knows? I can't say that the prince in Act 1 was thrown a party by the queen, because the queen said, hey, it's time for you to get married. You just have too much fun hanging out with your buddies and going hunting. And so she throws this party for him and invites all these eligible young princesses.
And one of the great things that I love about what Tchaikovsky does with his ballets is it's like, and now here's the section of the ballet where everyone gets to dance, and there's like it's the Russian dance, it's the this dance,
Exactly.
it's the that, and each of these little princesses get to show off at the party. I hadn't thought about it being autobiographical, but he did get married the year that it was premiered,
Right.
Despite the fact that marriage was deeply flawed and failed
Yes.
after 2.5 months.
Yes, exactly. I think no wonder. Well, you're absolutely right. Like no wonder the piece is so dramatic and so emotional and so loud. Because I'm sure he was inside, especially in that society, screaming inside, like, I want to marry for love, whoever it may be. And I think that is the element that speaks to so many people who go to, even if they don't go to the ballet, they know the tune, or they watch Black Swan, that Hollywood would pick Swan Lake to become a blockbuster. I mean, it's a story. It's a story.
Yeah, and he does it. There is that capacity of drama in it that not all ballet had up to that point.
No.
I mean, you sort of look at the history of ballet, particularly in the I'm thinking the ballets of Rameau's day and the
Yes.
early Baroque. And I mean, those were all, and I mean this in the kindest way, but Ponzi.
Oh,
And they all had this, kind of, pomp and circumstance to them. It
Right.
wasn't a lot about emotion. It was
No.
more about how we dance on stage. And then along
Exactly.
comes Tchaikovsky, who makes emotion the driving force behind the music, behind the scenery, behind the
Exactly.
costumes, behind the story, and behind the dancing.
Yes.
And I can imagine that was a unique challenge.
Oh, I'm in agreement with you, and it's a very good point that you bring up about how it is through composed, and all of a sudden, okay, now let's have a few small dances, and then we're all expected to sit and stop and clap, which we do because they're great, right? Because that's what is expected. And I think for our suite, I purposely didn't put any of those little dances in there. Maybe it's subconscious because, like, conducting ballet, you never get to relax. It is the score itself. Swan Lake is very, very difficult. It's very difficult to play correctly, and it's even more difficult to play well. And it requires so much stamina. So that for us playing and conducting, that when you get to those, all of a sudden, oh no, I have to really watch the tempo. Because this princess number 1 on Monday night matinee or Monday evening is different from princess number 2 on Tuesday. So it's interesting that he take that aspect you noticed right away. Yeah. Because
How many times have you conducted Swan Lake on stage as a ballet?
Too
many to count.
30 times.
That's a lot of times.
That's a lot of times, and often we do in ballet. It's 5 services on a weekend, so you do 5 ballets, like Friday and then Saturday, Sunday. And in some companies, like the company in Australia, it's all the way through the week too. And in Korea with Korean National Ballets, we do double rehearsals Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then we open. So you're doing doubles every day, and then you do 5, and it's a marathon. But it's, so thank goodness, right? It's so satisfying. The music's so beautiful.
What is conducting ballet like? I mean, what I as a young musician, as a young pianist, I avoided playing for ballet class like the plague.
Good choice.
Because I had friends who did it, and I listened to them and heard from them how hard it was.
Yes.
Because, like you say, dancer A on Monday is feeling great and has tons of energy, and it goes quicker than usual. And Thursday night she's had too big a supper, and now we need to slow down a bit.
Yes.
And you have to, as the conductor, be prepared to change in the moment.
Yes.
So that A, it shows off the best of the dancer, but B,
Right.
it also doesn't hurt them.
Yes. That is a big part of the job, is to keep their career as long as possible. I love ballet dancers. They are so relentless in their strive for perfection. There is something quite beautiful about that they really, truly, like, musicians too, sacrifice everything for their art form. And especially for ballet dancers, because their time may be a little shorter than some other artists. So you do everything you can to make them look great, to get them that promotion, to lengthen their career. And I actually had one experience which will forever, was so touching. I did a program at Balanchine, and so I went out with some of the guys in the orchestra, in the pit. We went out for drinks after, because the run was done, and this wonderful dancer came to the table and said, "Thank you. I just want you to tell you, nobody knew, but I'm about to retire, and I didn't think, and this was my last, and I really didn't think I could get through it, but it was, thank you." And that was more satisfying than any amount of appreciation.
That's
So,
amazing. Yeah, they do have very short career spans
Yes.
and volatile careers. They can be at
Yes.
the top of their game
Yes.
and gone the next day
Yeah.
just due to an injury.
Yes.
And that's very
Yeah.
very challenging as an industry to sustain that.
Yes.
You've had the opportunity to work with many great artists, including Saskatoon's very own Matthew Golding.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
and someday we actually when I found that out
Yep.
and I talked to Matthew, and you know we hopefully someday we'll be able to bring this little project together
Yep.
that the three of us talked about. And but Matthew is, those of you who don't know, is from Saskatoon, one of the biggest male dancers of the
Yep.
last 10 years. He was the
Absolutely.
principal at the Royal Ballet in London,
Yep.
and is now a massive choreographer and
Yep.
doing really cool different projects because he's at that age where the big jumps are difficult. And so that's very cool that you had that connection with him.
Oh, it was amazing. I mean, it was in both times was in Hong Kong. I think the first one was Don Quixote, and it was my first. And it's hard. Like Don Quixote is. I mean, all the ballets are hard, like because you have to focus and you have to push down your desires and be able to read what they want and make it work musically. So that's the hard part. And he's danced it. He and his partners danced it many, many times. And I still have videos of the three of us in one of our dressing rooms. And they're like, okay, no, here, when you do this, when I do the diagonal. So I take her like this. And then she says, yeah. And then he does this. And then this is how you do it. And you need to get into it from that tempo. And so very specific and all very logical and all very musical. So that was my first time working with him. The second time was Corsair, I think. Oh my gosh, so much fun. Absolutely wonderful.
Very cool.
Yep.
In Swan Lake, as we were mentioning, Odette is a princess. She's been doomed to this curse by von Rothbart. Do we know why? Has she? I'm trying to remember if there's a reason why he actually does it.
I was wondering why. I don't know if it's kind of like one of those Sleeping Beauty things.
Yeah,
where,
Tchaikovsky sort of leaves it out.
Yeah, where kind of like he should have been invited to a party, but he got left off the list. Like one of those things. Right. It's like, I'll show you. So I'm going to come to the party anyway.
And ironically, I mean, Tchaikovsky then did do Sleeping Beauty 10 years later. So
that's right. There you go.
Maybe he just had leftover ideas.
Could be.
So she's doomed to be a swan during the day and this back to herself at night. Let's dig into the rest of the story.
Okay.
So the young prince, his mother has said, time to grow up. We're going to get married.
That's
throwing
right.
you this party. You're going to meet all these suitors.
Yep.
How does the party go?
Well, I mean, he's a prince. He's elegant. He's, taught to behave in a certain way. So he did his dances and he showed his appreciation. And then boom, like as soon as he could, he took his crossbow and went off to go hunting. Thanks, Mom. Put in my.
Some things never change.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah, you can't make me. So he goes off and he sees this flock, this flock of swans, right, in the sky. So goes after them, goes into the forest, sees one in particular that was just spectacular looking swan. And as he is about to take aim, it becomes night and she changed into Odette. And he goes, I would be shocked, I suppose, if that happens. So he's like, so she's like, don't shoot, and explained. And he says, don't worry, I'm not going to shoot you. And she explained the curse. And of course, it's a ballet, so they dance. And just like that, they fell in love. He proclaims his love and says, forever I will be, faithful to you. And she's very hopeful because that is the one thing that would break the curse.
Correct. True love.
Yep.
Yeah, true love solves everything in most ballets.
Yes.
Yeah. And then, if I recall, the mother throws a second party.
Yeah.
Because just like how teenage men have not changed, neither have mothers.
No.
That first party didn't work. And now we're going to throw a second party, darn it.
That's right. And she upped the ante for this one. It's a costume party. because I guess the first one was a regular party. That wasn't good enough. So we're going to do, okay, let's do some costume thing happening. And she invited, let's see, excuse me, 3 princess, maybe more than 3. I don't know. It was like a princess from Spain, one from Prussia, from Hungary. And of course they do their dance. But what happened was all of a sudden in the orchestra, boom, like this big change in the music, right? And these 2 mysterious, uninvited guests, but I mean, they were so well dressed that they let them in anyway, came, and it was von Rothbard. Nobody knew, right? Except for us.
Because it's a costume, and the audience knows. Yeah,
the audience knows. And he had put a magic spell on his equally evil daughter, Odile. And I don't know how it happened that, Odette Odile, but I guess, that's the story. And she looked exactly like Odette, but I guess dressed in a different outfit and a lot sassier. And the prince is like, wow, oh my gosh, there she is. But here she is. Like, yesterday she was, I mean, I hesitate to say this, is that whole duality that, the society's expectations of women, and I won't go further, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And he's probably thinking, my goodness, wow, like, whoa. And of course he had only met her once the night before, and it was
dark.
It was dark, right?
I mean, he was at a lake.
Yeah.
You don't recognize everybody you meet at a lake dark
No.
who turns from a swan to a woman.
Yeah. It sort of looks like her.
As we're saying the whole plot thing, I'm wondering, is this maybe this wasn't the best plot ever? Anyway, go back. Let's finish it off.
Yeah, I think if anything, it would be the moral. The other secondary moral of the story is you should listen to your mom. Let mom advise you, or a longer engagement is always a good idea. So then they dance, right? There's that famous Black Swan pas de deux, the music, and the minute you hear it, you'll recognize it. It's fabulous, fabulous music. So that is actually not in. I don't think it's in the suites.
No, it's not. No.
So we've put it in the suite because you can't have Swan Lake with just Odette, without Odile. That's the whole point of the story. And so they dance, and he's proclaims in front of the whole court, "This is the woman for me." That's it. And at that point, you got the thunder and lightning music going on in the orchestra, the equivalent of Count Dracula. Wah-ha-ha-ha-ha. Guess what? She's not who you think she is, said von Rothbard. And he freaks out and runs again to the lake.
I grew up in a small town in southwest Saskatchewan, and in the summertime, I mean, we all ran to the lake. So I sort of get that as some, it's like, what are you doing this weekend? Go to the lake. Okay. So I sort of get that he just, decides he needs to go back to the lake.
Yeah, he has to go back to the lake because, many reasons, I suppose. And I guess he felt a little bad, right? So he had to go and apologize to his real girlfriend that he only met
the night
briefly.
Before.
Yeah. So he finds her and begs for her forgiveness. And of course, because she's the nice swan, she said, "Oh, of course I forgive you. You just completely doom me forever. This is it. I will never break the curse. It's okay." Right? And so who shows up? Von Rothbard. And this part actually is one of my favorite parts in the ballet musically. It's incredible. There is this repeated figure in the strings, and it builds and it builds and it builds. First, it starts in I think 16 notes, da 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 da, and then it becomes da 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 dee da da, and it goes into triplets, and it just goes nuts. And then the brass comes in, and that's when all the swans. Because I guess I neglected to say that Odette, the Swan Queen, also has a lot of swan friends,
followers.
Yeah,
swans in waiting.
Swans in waiting. Who were also cursed by von Rothbard.
Wasn't everybody?
I know. We have to be careful, I guess, when we leave the
we don't end up
bookstore.
cursed, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So they they swarmed and they circled Prince Siegfried, so that Rothbard in some versions can't get to him. And there are other versions where it's like an army of swans, like row after row after row, that just walks like downstage. It is the most glorious moment. I mean, they're just walking, but when dancers walk, it's quite spectacular.
Better than the rest of us.
Yeah, the rest of us can't compete. And me, very lucky to have the best seat in the house, like right down in the middle, looking, looking at this army of swans and with this gorgeous, glorious music. It's quite a remarkable moment. In terms theatrically.
Yeah,
thank you.
Yeah.
So then what happens, I guess, is that what happens? She decides, no, he gives his life away. No, and so does she. They both give up their lives in order to try and break the curse. And so there's your, ultimate sacrifice. And I think, like, it speaks to just about every human being. Like, wow, like, what percentage of the population? I mean, I think we all feel it. Like, I would like to give up this. I would give up this to have this. This is my biggest desire. We all think it, right? But how many of us actually do it? And I think that's what is so engaging about this story and the music that goes with it. Because I think Tchaikovsky really felt to himself too. And therefore the music was so real and so visceral. So,
yeah, and actually the whole idea of dying for love is a constant theme. Yes. In not only his throughout obviously Swan Lake and also Sleeping Beauty and sort of even in Nutcracker, but throughout almost all of his operas, Eugene Onegin and Yolanta, like they all have this. They have a moment where somebody's decided, I'm going to give it all up, and like you say, that was a challenge for him, having grown up. And I mean, of all the composers throughout all of history, no one's sexuality has been discussed more than Tchaikovsky's. Right. And the fact that he was quite open about his homosexuality, and of course he couldn't be at the time. It was illegal. It was he came from a fairly well-to-do family, I should say. And it was very frowned upon. He married. He left his wife after 2.5 months, and couldn't. And in the end, he didn't die for love. No. But it was obviously something that was constantly at the heart of his storytelling.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's always that hope that, okay, if I can't find this love on this plane, then maybe if I believe hard enough, that in another in the hereafter, things could be better and things could be more fair. I think that there's the Matthew Bourne Swan Lake features exactly what you're describing. Like, two men who just really not allowed. I think that theme. I think everybody, regardless of who you choose to love, can see that and go, oh my goodness, like, wow.
And that is what's magical about the music of Swan Lake. It quite literally drips in dramatic romance.
Yes.
Like, you can't listen to it and not be swept up in it. And that's what I think is so exciting, that you've created this brand new suite for us. That you painstakingly picked parts from the whole ballet to give us the full story. Like you say, the suite itself doesn't give us the full story. No. It gives us some of the highlights, and it misses some of the highlights. And so this actually allows us to kind of dig into it. I know you had the first rehearsal last night with the strings.
Yes,
I'm sure they're excited. I'm sure it's excitement. It's a lot of playing for those string players.
Yes,
he even though he wasn't yet the Tchaikovsky we knew him to be, because he wasn't quite as famous at the time, he was writing at the peak of his skill.
Yes.
It's that the audiences hadn't caught up yet.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
The string writing is remarkable, and all of the writing is remarkable. Like the brass, like the woodwinds, and even the timpani and the percussion. Like, and when you combine it all together, it's actually quite overwhelmingly beautiful. For this suite, for the presentation, I'm so excited like that we're going to have photographs from Finnish National Ballet's newest production of Swan Lake by David McAllister, and we'll have those photographs.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, and actually, every single member, anyone who has a ticket actually gets the email the day before, and will have the whole the photographs and the walkthrough and the storyline all to be able to have there.
Yeah.
We've set it up so people can have it on their phones.
That's great.
So that it's because the background is dark, so it's not going to
Yes.
disturb people around
Right,
you.
yes.
We've been working on all of that, and in the live stream, we get to actually see those moments visually, thanks to the Finnish National Ballet and their
Yes.
incredible, beautiful, beautiful production.
Yeah, it's
Really
it is.
spectacular.
Yeah, I'm so happy. Thank you, Madeline Ona, and it's all actually this is one great big family, right? Of people that you've met throughout your career. Madeline was the one who gave me my first Sleeping Beauty. She took a chance on me. And so she was an artistic director of Hong Kong Ballet, and now she's artistic director in Finnish National Ballet. And one of the dancers that's on the photograph, Jun Jia, I have conducted for him so many times in Hong Kong, and he went from Hong Kong Ballet to Finland, and he's stunning. He's a stunning, beautiful
Nice.
dancer.
Nice. Anyone watching at home, if you have questions, please make sure you put them into the live chat, because we are able to have them sent right through to me, and I can ask them here at the end of the show. It's a Tchaikovsky double bill.
Yes.
Because thrillingly we get to have the Rococo Variations.
Yay.
Pardon me, the Variations on a Rococo theme
Oh, okay.
is technically
Right.
the title of the piece, which is maybe the worst title of a piece ever, because it is not a Rococo theme. It's an original theme written by Tchaikovsky to sound as close to Mozart as he could get it.
Oh.
And hilariously, Mozart was also not a Rococo composer.
That is hilarious.
So,
Yeah.
so but it's a phenomenal piece of music. It is his cello concerto, although it's not officially a full concerto. It is the opportunity for him to show the cello off at its finest. A set of theme and variations, and we get to be joined by Jonathan Craig Penner.
Yes.
Jonathan's making his SSO debut with us this weekend, and we're thrilled because he is one of the winners of the Cherniac Concerto competition that's hosted every second year here by the Saskatchewan Music Festival Association. So we just had Jerry Hu this past fall, who was one of our concerto competition winners, and now we're thrilled to have John on
Yay.
stage with us. He has a beautiful, rich sound. I can say that I was one of the judges the year he won, and he gets this piece in his bones. A football player who understands the elegance of the Rococo sound, so I'm really excited about that. What do you love about these Rococo Variations?
Oh my gosh. It is so beautifully written. It is so intimate, and at the same time there's when I'm listening to it, and the last time that I conducted it, I remember thinking, my goodness, this is Tchaikovsky, and you're absolutely right. It is not Rococo. But I'd forgotten the minute you start listening to it, I became so obsessed with the most gorgeous theme. He has this talent for writing gorgeous themes.
Well, and you sort of do believe, because of its elegance and because of the form he gives it, you sort of do believe that it is an older theme.
Yes.
Which is part of the genius of what Tchaikovsky could do with music.
Yes, absolutely. No, I'm very, very excited to be.
The variations are intriguing because they show off. It's funny. Often when you think of variations, you think of they've each variation is a new departure, and this is, although they're almost all either allegro or andante. There's not a lot of middle ground in those in the tempi, but it's in the way that they've he uses the expressive forces, and particularly, I mean, I always find the key changes in it quite fascinating. And as we get to that second last variation where it is constantly the E major, E major, E major, and this constant preparation of landing in A major again is very Rococo-esque.
Yeah, right.
He does that dominant preparation so well.
And I love the dialogue between the woodwinds and the strings. The strings have this gorgeous melody, and the woodwind has this other melody, which I'm going to try and see if we can make it happen this time. It starts with this incredible little upbeat from the bassoons. And if you judge the tempo just right, you could hear it clearly. And so the trick is, how do you join these two elements in just the right way? So yeah, I'm really thrilled to be doing this.
And it's such a perfect match actually to Swan Lake, because A, it's that oral tradition of Tchaikovsky, but B, it's a complete tonic. It doesn't have the heart on sleeve drama that Swan Lake has. No. It's a delectable. I always think of it as sort of a box of chocolates.
Yes.
It's enjoyable thoroughly through and through. It's so good it's hardened in house. Like, it's just a local chocolate maker will get you there before you leave town. Because they make the best chocolates, and each one is a different taste, but of such incredible quality and enjoyment.
Yes, and they all link together. Yeah. How does he do that?
Yeah, and sort of effortlessly linked together without the audience going, yeah. Sometimes happen in variations.
Yes, and now on to the fast one, because we just had a slow one. Yeah. I actually, when you mentioned that, I can't tell you right now which is the fast and which is the slow. But there is a huge variation in dynamics, in style, in tempo, that seamlessly go into one and the other. And a beautiful cadenza.
A phenomenal cadenza.
Oh, my gosh.
And it's always fun to be able to showcase the incredible talents that come out of Saskatchewan. We're so thrilled to have John on stage with us. And I'm so thrilled many of his family are joining us this weekend. So that's very exciting that they'll get to see him as well up there on the big stage. We open the concert with a piece that I had been excited about for a year. So I actually suggested this to you because I heard it but from a composer that I follow on Instagram. And she is 27-year-old Nia Imani Franklin.
Yes.
She also accidentally happens to be the former Miss America.
Oh, wow.
In your spare time. She has a bachelor's in music. She has a master's in composition. And, was Miss America.
Yeah, well.
And on top of being one of the most beautiful people in the world, she truly is. She is one of the nicest, most charming people we've ever had the chance to work with.
Yes.
And her piece was born out of the pandemic, which I think is important. And Chrysalis Extended is the name of the work, and she was asked by the Dallas Symphony Orchestra to write this piece for a pandemic orchestra. They did it in Dallas last, I think, April. They were all very distanced on stage. Nia brings a cool palette to her music, and I think it's a great match for Tchaikovsky, or a great pairing, because there's so much romantic integrity in it.
Yes, there is. And it is visually, too, like Tchaikovsky, visually compelling. And the interesting thing is, and yes, she is so nice, because I love working with new music, like with living composers, because, if I don't know what to do with a particular situation, Tchaikovsky, is not like I could ask him. But here, I actually have been emailing back and forth with Nia, asking her questions. And what really struck me was how open she was to discussing what this meant and, why this. And I asked her, there's a really interesting little figure at the very beginning in the double bass, and I said, what does that signify to you? Because to me, it sounds like a butterfly inside a shell trying to break out. And her answer was fantastic. She said, "Oh, it's a tribute to my love for jazz." I thought, okay, that's great. That's great, because I did not expect that answer. So as our conversation, carried out over the couple of days, she actually started talking a bit more about how the piece felt to her. So I
understand. Not only did she talk about how it felt, she's made adjustments.
That's correct. Yeah, because
Which is fantastic. That is one of the things about living composers. Yeah. Often, when we do a premiere of something, this is the Canadian premiere of her work. A composer's in the room, and sometimes they make changes right then. They walk onto stage and they scribble something, and they go, "Oh, this is now different," and everybody just goes, "Uh huh." I understand she sent through changes to the score. Yes,
she did. It may have been my fault, because it's a perfect piece the way it is, like the way it is. And I said, because I said, well, is there anything you might like? Do you want to try anything different? And she very politely, without saying a word, said, "Oh yeah, I'll try that." And she sent a little something different.
It's very cool. Yeah. She is really charming. Her music is she's written a number of chamber pieces, quite a lot of chamber music, vocal music. She herself is an incredible vocalist, opera, jazz, pop music. And this is her first big orchestral piece. I know she's written a chamber opera. I know she's got more orchestral music currently being composed.
Wow.
It's cool to see a young voice like this that is I hate the word accessible when we talk about music. It is accessible in the sense that it is not inaccessible, as some new music can feel to audiences because it's academic in its nature.
Exactly.
This music by Nia is so charming and honest and beautiful. And the trombone solo is just, you can hear that influence of jazz in her music. And it's exciting to be able to give the Canadian premiere of it.
Yeah, and I was actually, on the way here, I was about to text her and say, "Hey, does this mean that we're doing the world premiere of the revised?"
Yes.
I guess so.
Yeah, and for her, it's a big deal. This is the first time her music's ever been done outside of the United States. She's had a ton of success in these last few years, but this was kind of the big opportunity for her. So we're really excited, and she'll be watching on the weekend, which is extra exciting.
I know.
And I know for listeners who want to get to know more about her, they should check out Saskatchewan Weekend this weekend with Shauna Powers on CBC, because Shauna is doing an interview, and Shauna's our favorite interviewer. So we're really excited about that. I have questions from the audience, which is very exciting. So we've got a number. I don't know that we'll get to all of them. But this is an excellent question. I was thinking this actually as well. Do you remember your first time seeing the ballet? And what was it?
Oh my goodness. Oh my gosh, I do not remember. I'm I think it may have been a company that went through Hong Kong. So I moved from Hong Kong to Canada when I was 9. So it must have been a company that went through, but I don't remember.
So it was Giselle.
Yeah.
Just saying.
I do remember the first ballet I ever worked as a pianist. It was Nutcracker. It was the first day, and it may have even been the first rehearsal of James Kadelka's Nutcracker for the National Ballet. And it was my first day at work as a pianist. And they made me play all that Uncle Nikolai party scene stuff in Act 1. I thought,
so hard.
It wasn't.
It's so hard.
I know, and I will always love James and Jeremy Ransom forever, because they could see the terror in this very young person's eyes. I was terrified, but they were very kind.
That's good. Yep. That's good. I like this question as well. What would you ask Tchaikovsky if you could? It doesn't have to be about Swan Lake. What would you ask Tchaikovsky?
Oh, that's a good question.
I had an instant answer for this when I saw it come up on my phone. And my answer, what I would ask Tchaikovsky is, let's talk about Nadezhda.
Oh.
So Nadezhda von Meck, of course, was his patron for 13 plus years, who he never met.
Oh,
they never
interesting.
met. So, and that was the agreement. So she commissioned him to write some music for her. She was an amateur musician. Her husband had died. He was a big industry magnate. She was incredibly wealthy. She was conscious of the challenges of his social life in modern Russia, what was then modern Russia. And part of the agreement was that they would never meet. Over those 13 years, there were 1,200 letters between the two of them.
Oh, that's
They were
great.
best friends. He described her as his best friend and his confidant. But they never met.
That's fascinating.
Isn't it? And you it's like, let's talk about that. How come you, like, I get it. They agreed originally we would never meet, but like 13 years without meeting, and then and she died. She was much older than him, and
Oh my gosh. Well, your answer is much more profound than mine.
well, I just find that fascinating.
It is. That's a very good. That's,
isn't it?
That's very. Well, I wonder if that aspect, that relationship, must be in all of his works in some way,
had to have
right?
been that kind of friendship. That, I mean, you know, we all have those friends who are so close to us, who we go to for advice, we go to for support. She was quite literally financial support, but you have to imagine that at some point there was that relationship, that friendship crept its way in. Now, I mean, it quite literally did. He dedicated his 4th symphony to her.
Wow.
And it's such a departure
Yep.
from his other symphonic works. That's, I think of that scherzo, which must, to a new audience, must have sounded so strange.
Yep.
So, yeah, I find that fascinating that Nadezhda von Meck was such a figure, and yet they never met. And they both lived in Moscow.
That's crazy.
Isn't it?
Wow.
She gave him something, I think it was like, 4,000 rubles a year, which like well-to-do public servants maybe made 600 rubles a year. So, she funded him so that he never had to worry about anything. And it's partially the reason we have Tchaikovsky's music now today.
That's amazing. That is amazing. That's a beauty. That's
we all
great.
need a Nadezhda.
Yes, we
Wouldn't
do.
that be wonderful?
Yes.
What's different about approaching a work for the 30th time as compared to the first time?
The first time, survival mode.
Particularly if it's a ballet.
Oh my gosh. So the first time I learned any work, it's survival mode. I won't lie. But by the 30th time, it's in your muscle memory and in your subconscious. And it took so many times before I realized, oh my gosh, like Tchaikovsky could have picked any instrument to play that famous theme. And who does he pick but the oboe? And the oboe sits right in the center of the orchestra. And it's almost like, Erin is the Swan Queen and we're the lake surrounding her. I mean, there are just various things that, come up in your mind. And each time you do it, right, each time you perform it is slightly different. And especially with, a different production has different needs and different dances, different needs. And whether you consciously or subconsciously, ingest that information, and also as your life, as you live your life, you live more of the experiences that are in all these stories, and it does change your interpretation. And certainly, in terms of rehearsal process, you're much better at the 31st time of knowing what to let go, what can be fixed, and what needs to be addressed. So you become more efficient. But on the other hand, I mean, I'm so grateful. Like, who gets to do that?
Yeah,
31 times. So thank you.
And it's exciting because also we get the full orchestra. So often in particularly here in Saskatoon, I don't know that some of this music will never have been played by full orchestra, because even when we had touring ballet, it was reduced pit band.
Yes, right.
And so you never get a full string section, you never get a full brass section. You get whatever can fit in the pit,
yes,
or whatever music has been recorded, canned.
Yes.
And so I think this is so exciting because because there'll be an electricity to hear this music in the way that it was actually meant to be heard.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, which I think is very exciting. One last question. During the pandemic, you became we on the SSO staff loved when you were playing for ballet on social media. And your lovely and charming wife Amanda, whose birthday is today. Happy birthday, Amanda! You would play things for dance class for social media dance class, and you took requests. My request was I won't dance, don't ask me, which I thought was the best.
Yeah,
because it's dance class.
Yes,
I won't dance, don't ask me. What was your favorite song to reimagine as a ballet dance class moment?
Well, I should say that I got fired because I was having too much fun. Yeah.
That is usually a thing, though, with pianists in ballet rooms. If you have too much fun,
you're just because you have to take everything very seriously, and here I am, in lovely piano house, dog right there, goofing around. I got fired. There were some Robbie Burns tunes, which was lovely and fun. But the funniest was Donna Summer. Yeah. Da 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 da. Which is that? Da 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 da. What is that? Hot stuff. Is it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That actually works for frappe, ladies and gentlemen. See. Yeah.
And I mean, someone out there should program that now that you've said it out loud.
Well, yeah.
The Donna Summer Ballet would do quite well in New York. Let's just be honest.
Oh my gosh, I love Donna Summer.
Yeah, it would do quite well.
Or the Supremes. I keep saying that to orchestras. When one section is when the section is too loud, I say that's sorry, I'm having a moment. Who's the lead singer? Diana Ross.
Diana Ross.
I said the violin ones are Diana Ross. Rest of you are the rest of the Supremes. So just bring it down. Yeah.
That's fair.
I'm all with
Judith. It's been wonderful to have you. I'm looking forward to watching you conduct this incredible music this weekend.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for joining us in very cold Saskatoon.
Love it.
Thank you, everyone at home, for joining us tonight. You can join us at the Hall TCU Place this weekend, Saturday night at 7:30. Tickets are available at saskatoonsymphony.org. And if you're not able to be in the hall with us, you can watch us online at saskatoonsymphony.org. The online tickets there for concertstream.tv. Thank you so much. Have a great night.